What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today, we're going to be breaking down one of the most important topics for this fantasy season, and that is the top running backs for fantasy football in 2019. Now, I've got my top 20 guys. This will be a little bit more PPR based, but don't worry, I will touch on the standard rankings as well. And speaking of rankings, there is no better time to go ahead and get a copy of the 2019 ADP Fantasy Football Draft Guide. It goes over overall player rankings, individual player rankings. You can go ahead and see in depth outside of these top 20 running backs who makes it all the way to the top 50. There's individual player bios, everything you could possibly want for a great price. So check out the description box. But in the meantime, let's get right into it. Kicking things off and coming in at number one, I have got Ezekiel Elliott. And when it comes to the best running backs for this season, we all know the top four names. They're Barkley, they're Zeke, they're Kamara, they're Christian McCaffrey. Whatever order you have them in, you can make the case that any one of those guys can be the number one dude, especially in PPR formats, and that the separation won't be by that much. But for what it's worth, I have got Zeke as my number one guy, not only in PPR formats, but also in standard as well. And here's why. Look, you might be worried that last season, Zeke didn't have the best start. Now, he did finish as the fifth overall fantasy running back, and you'd say, well, fifth overall, there was four guys that finished above him, so why are you going to have him as the number one dude? Well, I'd like to think that the Cowboys realized that their best version of the offense that they currently have is when they involve Zeke, when they make him the focal point, because we saw it last season when he was kind of frustrating the first several weeks. We all knew what the Cowboys had to do. They just had to feed him even more. They had to give him some more pass catching opportunities as well. And wouldn't you know it, by the end of the season, when they started doing that, he was dominating week in and week out. In fact, he led all running backs in rush attempts. He had over 300 rush attempts. Just to give you a comparison, that's about 40 more than Saquon finished with. So that's impressive in it of itself. And for me, Zeke, he has room for growth compared to some of the other running backs, a Barkley, a Gurley, a Kamara. Those guys all had double-digit rushing touchdowns. Guess what? Zeke only had 6 rushing touchdowns. So in all likelihood, that category will improve. I expect Zeke to finish with close to double-digit touchdowns, if not above that mark, easily for this season. He's not a guy that's injury-prone. He's a guy that is very sturdy at that position. He's someone that improved tremendously as a pass catcher last year, something that we expected, but finishing with over 75 receptions on the season. Great improvement on his end. I would expect similar type of production, maybe between 60 and 75 receptions. I realize that might be a little bit of a drop, but I'm trying to give a little bit of credit to Dak Prescott, maybe growing as a passer. But I don't want to get too ahead of myself, because we all know that Dak Prescott is a run-first quarterback. He's not the best as far as accurate touch quarterbacks are concerned, so he will still have a lot of dink and dumps going to guess who, Ezekiel Elliott. Another factor that I think not enough people are paying attention to is that Travis Frederick, the center of the Dallas Cowboys, who didn't play a single snap last season, he is set to return in 2019 and should play the entire year. That is a huge factor here, folks. He's one of the better centers in the NFL. He is the cog to that offensive line in Dallas. And with his return, that entire rushing attack should be bettered. And I think Zeke will be better for that as well. I think he's going to continue to give you about 20 rushes every single game. The Amari Cooper presence for the Dallas Cowboys kind of took off some pressure off of Ezekiel Elliott, so they're a little bit more balanced of an offense. Maybe you don't have that as much with the New York Giants. People pretty much know it's going to be the Saquon Barkley show. Dak's a little bit more dangerous. You've got Amari Cooper to worry about. So to me, for that specific reason, I've got Zeke above a guy like Saquon Barkley. When it comes to Alvin Kamara and Christian McCaffrey, I've got Zeke above there, especially in standard, because, obviously Kamara, McCaffrey, they're probably going to beat Zeke and Barkley in receptions. But when it comes to pure rushing yards, Zeke should be one of the top contenders. I mean, he did it last season as far as leading the league, get you 1,400, 1,500 rushing yards. To me, all of that, when you put it together, spells out Ezekiel Elliott, the best fantasy rusher in football for 2019. Coming in at number 2, I have got Saquon Barkley. And similar to Ezekiel Elliott, Barkley is not only my number 2 running back in PPR formats, but also in standard formats as well. To me, him and Zeke are the favorite running backs in the rushing yard department as far as the most likely guys to get you over 1,300 yards on the season effortlessly. I mean, Barkley as a rookie over-delivered on people's wildest expectations. You can make the argument. He had over 1,300 rushing yards, 11 rushing touchdowns, 91 receptions for 721 yards. Insane numbers. And a lot of people think that he will only continue to grow in 2019. A big reason for that is the departure of Odell Beckham, which pretty much means Saquon Barkley is the man in New York. He is the focal point for that offense, and a lot of those targets will now go his way. However, I do want to say that I think that a lot of people are undervaluing the role that guys like a Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram, and Golden Tate will have in this department. I think they will step up in terms of receptions. So in my mind, I'm not as high on Saquon Barkley improving in the receiving category that some other people would probably say. I think his ceiling as far as receptions on the season is right around that 90 mark. I think, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if those receptions go down a little bit. I do think that favorably, the offensive line showed that it could hold up for the Giants. A big factor in all of this will be if Eli Manning is the quarterback the entire season. That's why there's a little bit more of a question mark here to Saquon than to Ezekiel Elliott, the way that I see it. Personally, I think Eli will be the guy for the entire season. So Saquon Barkley should have, a consistent role in that offense, because it is obviously viable to change when Daniel Jones is inserted. If that happens, obviously. To me, the big thing for Saquon Barkley is there were games last year in 2018 versus some top-notch rushing defenses where he kind of under-delivered. That Tennessee Titans contest towards the end of the year kind of stands out, and that's a little bit of a worry. He was a big play guy. We know that some of those big plays are a little bit harder to duplicate on a year-to-year basis, but obviously that would, to me, more so be nitpicking at Saquon Barkley. I just think that Zeke is a little bit of a safer pick than Saquon. I still think Barkley will be the man. I do, however, think that you could see a regression in the touchdown department, go under that double-digit number. So for that reason, he comes in at number 2 on my list. Next, number 3, I've got Christian McCaffrey. And with McCaffrey, he was a guy that broke out in a big way in 2018. Drafted somewhere around the 2nd round, but finished as a top 3 fantasy running back in all formats. And guess what? I think he can do it again in 2019. I've also got him as my 3rd overall running back in standard formats. To me, Christian McCaffrey is the guy at number 3, more so than an Alvin Kamara. And here is why. Because Kamara has to contend with a guy in Latavius Murray who will fill that Mark Ingram role. And obviously Kamara is the number 1 unquestioned guy. But with Christian McCaffrey, he doesn't really have that in Carolina. People seem to forget that C.J. Anderson was there for the Panthers for a long period of time at the start of the season. But that's how well McCaffrey played that C.J. Anderson became an afterthought. The biggest guy McCaffrey will have to contend with will actually be Cam Newton, because Newton is that ultimate touchdown vulture, even at the quarterback position in goal line scenarios, just giving you those 1-yard, 2-yard quarterback sneaks. He'll be a touchdown vulture for Christian McCaffrey, but you just have to accept that. The fact of the matter is, even while he did do that in 2018, McCaffrey still found a bunch of success. As far as his stats go, he almost had a 1,000 type of season. He had almost 1,100 rushing yards, 1,098, 7 rushing touchdowns, 107 receptions for 867 receiving yards. Arguably one of the best dual threat running backs in the NFL, maybe the best pass catching running back in the NFL. And I think he can go ahead and duplicate those stats again. The one area here that I want to point out where I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit of a regression is in the reception and receiving yard department. And the reason being, is because, again, a lot of people maybe didn't realize that Greg Olsen wasn't that big of a factor for the Panthers as he was injured again in 2018. But guess what? When healthy, Greg Olsen is Cam Newton's favorite target. He is a huge weapon for the Panthers, especially, again, in red zone situations. He's a big body tight end that Cam Newton can go to even when he's not the most accurate. I think that along with Christian McCaffrey, Greg Olsen is the best pass catcher the Panthers have without a doubt. So to me, some targets will go in Greg Olsen's way that we're probably going Christian McCaffrey's in 2018, but maybe more so than anything else. We all know Cam Newton got hurt last year in 2018 towards the middle of the season. But maybe what some people don't realize here is when that injury happened that Cam Newton lost the long ball in his arsenal. So guess what that meant? Well, that meant a lot more checkdowns to guys that were within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. And guess who was most often than not that guy? It was Christian McCaffrey. So then you can make the case that when Cam Newton returns to full health in 2019, which is the expectation as of right now, that he will regain that long ball that he had before, and Christian McCaffrey won't get as many checkdowns. So again, those receptions could fall to under 100. It wouldn't surprise me at all. But either way, however you slice it, I think Christian McCaffrey, one of the most deadly dual threat running backs. He's a guy in PPR formats that is can't miss. At number 4, we have got Alvin Kamara, my 4th best running back in standard and in PPR formats. To me, Alvin Kamara is a guy that you have to love on so many levels. He's a guy that's produced since he got into the league his rookie season. He's gotten only better every single year since then. And he's been doing it while he's had someone to contend with. That's what's even more impressive. We all saw what Alvin Kamara did while Mark Ingram was suspended. And I think that just blew everyone's mind. That usage rate that he was on, the fantasy point production rate that he was on was absolutely unfathomable. He was dominating during that time. Obviously, once Mark Ingram returned, those numbers kind of fell down back to earth, but he was still an RB1 option that was viable every single week, and he'll continue to do that in 2019, even with Latavius Murray now in town and Mark Ingram gone. The one thing I will say is that even with Latavius Murray there, I don't think he's quite as good of a backup running back as Mark Ingram. I think he won't fit that offense in New Orleans the way that Mark Ingram did. I think he, obviously, this being his first year, he has to get a little bit more comfortable. And I just don't think he's as good of a pass catcher and maybe as versatile as Mark Ingram was. The real question will be his usage in goal line situations. But you just have to love Alvin Kamara's situation otherwise. He's on an offense that dominates every single year in the regular season. He's on a high-scoring offense at that, led by Drew Brees, a future Hall of Fame quarterback, an offensive guru in Sean Payton, and more so than anything, this is a run-first offense that will feature Alvin Kamara a bunch. I actually think that as far as him making improvements in the rushing department is something that's very feasible, especially on his rush attempts and on his rushing yards. Last year, he finished with 194 rushes for 883 rush yards, 14 touchdowns, 81 receptions for 709 receiving yards, and then 4 receiving touchdowns. The one area that I think will likely see a regression in is the rushing touchdowns, just because 14 is such a high number. But I think every other category you can make the case that we will see an improvement for Alvin Kamara. And for that reason, he is the guy that caps off the list as far as can't miss elite running back tier 1 guys that after we mention these dudes, then we have a step down. But Alvin Kamara, especially in PPR formats, a guy that, again, is just an absolute stud and can be the number 1 pick overall. Next, at number 5, I've got David Johnson, and maybe a little bit of a surprise having him this high considering he was a top 4, top 5 pick last year, yet he finished as the 10th overall fantasy running back in standard and 9th overall fantasy running back in PPR formats. Now, I will say in standard formats, I do have him about a slot or 2 lower, but regardless, the point being here is I still see him finishing as a top 10 fantasy running back and a high-end one at that. The reason I'm high on David Johnson, even though he disappointed last season, is I do think the changes the Cardinals made offensively will benefit DJ. First and foremost, adding Cliff Kingsbury and the type of offensive playing style that he wants to implement, I think more so gels with David Johnson. I think he will be a bigger factor in the passing attack. They want to have a quicker offense. The thing that you have to like about David Johnson, even though he didn't quite produce as highly as you expected him to, the usage was there. He got about 260 rush attempts, which is the same as Saquon Barkley. So you know he will get fed the ball. The thing that you also have to like is after the selection of Kyler Murray, you saw it in his ADP. It's continued to rise, and I wouldn't be surprised if it continues to rise leading up to our drafts and leading up to the NFL season. In fact, right now, if you're drafting, you can probably get pretty good value for David Johnson. A lot of people are coming around, but you could still get him at the end of the first round, maybe right at the start of the second round. Very good value for David Johnson right there. But to me, the big question mark here will be the offensive line, because that's the real reason why DJ kind of underdelivered last year. He's got the skill set. He's still one of the best running backs in the NFL. He's not that old. He's still in that category of best pass catchers along with guys like Le'Veon Bell, Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara. We're only 2 seasons kind of removed from David Johnson having that type of 1,000 yard season, which is so valuable, not only for his team, but obviously in fantasy. I think he can go ahead and do it. For him, the biggest thing to monitor will be that offensive line. But again, that's why you see this distinction in tiers, because with these next group of guys, there's more question marks than the elite running backs that we have mentioned up until now. Either way, though, I think David Johnson is going to be a great RB1 and maybe an option that right now you can get great value on, because I do think people are sleeping on him a little bit. He is very versatile. He's durable. And he's someone that I think will be able to lead your team moving forward in 2019. Next, number 6, I've got Melvin Gordon. And with Gordon, he is a running back that has truly elevated his rank these last couple of years, specifically in the touchdown department. He's excelled in that category these last 2 seasons. The big thing for him is this injury bug. It's not too serious of a one. He still gets you around 12 or 13 games a year, but these last 2 seasons he hasn't played a full 16 games, which to some extent makes what he's been doing stat-wise that much more impressive, because he finished as 6th overall standard fantasy running back, 8th overall in PPR formats. So across the board, considering he only played 12 games, you would expect an improvement in rushes, in rush yards, in receptions, receiving yards. Last year, he had 885 rush yards, 10 rushing touchdowns, which is where the big value comes from, 50 receptions, and 490 receiving yards. So you'd expect, again, receptions maybe go up by 15 or 20. Receiving yards go up by maybe 150. Rush yards definitely over 1,000. The nice thing about Melvin Gordon, again, he is such a focal point on that offense. He will go ahead and be in a high-scoring affair with the Chargers. They've got a potent offense, and when he does get hurt, the thing to go ahead and note about Melvin Gordon, he's one of these guys where he has got a very valuable handcuff in Austin Ekeler, kind of more so than anyone else that's been mentioned so far. I realize Alvin Kamara and Latavius Murray maybe fall into this category, but the difference is Latavius Murray can be viable without Alvin Kamara getting injured. It's when Melvin Gordon gets injured that Austin Ekeler will really be that true difference maker. Maybe in PPR formats, you'll get a week or 2 where he gets you some receiving touchdowns and he has a good performance. But what I'm trying to say is with Melvin Gordon, to some extent, you have to predict, well, he'll only give me 12 or 13 games this season, even though, we don't want to predict for injuries. That's just such a hard thing to go ahead and try to account for. But if we're just going by recent MO, then you'd think that Gordon can miss 2 or 3 games. So the advice here would be go ahead and invest a pick in Austin Ekeler if you get Melvin Gordon. So if he misses those games, then you've got his backup who becomes an RB1. And then when Melvin Gordon returns, you don't miss a beat. You reinsert him into your lineup and he returns to that RB1 that we all know him to be. Next in number 7 is Joe Mixon, and I'm guessing a lot of people are probably saying, wow, this is a little bit higher than I expected Mixon to be ranked in PPR formats. Guess what, though? I've got him even higher in standard formats. That's how big of a fan I am of Mixon. I said last year, he was going somewhere around the 3rd round. If you grab him at that point in time, it's an incredible value pick. You will not be disappointed. He's going to give you RB1 production, and he did. He was a top 10 fantasy running back across all formats. I think he'll do the same thing in 2019. And in a couple years, I think we'll be talking about Mixon as a top 5 fantasy running back. Now, the thing that is kind of giving me some cause for concern here, and I don't really want to say too big concern because it's an injury to the offensive line with Jonah Williams, who was the 1st round offensive lineman taken in this year's draft by the Bengals. Someone that I was very excited for, and I thought was going to be a big reason why Mixon has a better year, why that entire offense is better. News coming out that he is going to miss the entire 2019 season. But, I mean, look, when you look at it, Mixon did what he did in 2018 without Jonah Williams being there, but still, this kind of lessens the ceiling to some extent that I originally had projected for Mixon maybe about a month ago, which was, if you believe it, even a little bit higher. Now, I would say Mixon, stat-wise, he gives you everything you could want as a rusher. Last season through 14 games, because he did miss 2 due to injury, he had 237 rushes for 1,168 rush yards, 8 touchdowns, and the area where I think he can really take a big step forward and what will make him an even bigger weapon in 2019 is the receiving department. He had 43 receptions for only 296 receiving yards and 1 receiving touchdown. I think that's a major area that you can go ahead and mark that you will likely see increases there. Now, as far as Joe Mixon and the health, since he did miss 2 games last year, if you're worried about that, go ahead, invest a pick in Giovanni Bernard. The guy's not even being drafted. I think he is the surefire RB2 for the Bengals. I realize that they drafted a couple of rookies that some people think will rise on the depth chart, but I just think what Bernard can do as a pass catcher is what really sets him apart. And we saw it last year. When Mixon was hurt, Bernard, he was an RB1 during that span. So go ahead, ensure yourself with Mixon, but just know while Mixon is actually on the field, he is going to absolutely deliver for you. Maybe you're a little bit worried that, you know, he's got a tough schedule. He's got a tough division defensively speaking because of the Browns, the Ravens, the Steelers, and the fronts that they have. I just think that Mixon is good enough to overcome that. And again, even with the Jonah Williams injury, to me, he is still a top 10 fantasy running back. Next, number 8, I've got Le'Veon Bell. And again, probably a little bit lower than you expected here for Bell, considering in some PPR formats, he's the 5th or 6th guy on the board. Guess what? I've got him even lower in standard formats because so much of what he brings to the table is as a pass catcher. Now, he's obviously a well-rounded, complete running back that we saw him dominate in Pittsburgh. What he did was absolutely sensational. He was almost in a league of his own, lining up as a wide receiver. I'm sure we'll see that for the Jets as well. But a big difference here, comparing the Pittsburgh offensive line and that of the Jets, is night and day type of differences here, folks. The Jets also, Adam Gase as the head coach, a lot of people are extremely wary of that. The MO that he has with top-notch running backs, it's not a good one, and it's a big reason why people are kind of concerned with Le'Veon Bell. And I would say probably other than Todd Gurley, Le'Veon Bell is the biggest fantasy running back name with this many question marks surrounding him. Wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if he gives you a running back performance at the end of the year that lands him under the top 10 guys, because we've seen how important an offensive line is to these running backs. I really do think the offensive line makes the running back and not the other way around. And we saw it with Todd Gurley a couple years back. Maybe you could say that was more so because of Fisher there, but the offensive line wasn't great either. And now, I mean, you've got a similar situation. Both Adam Gase doesn't have the best of reputations, and that offensive line for the Jets not the best. Sam Darnold, he still has to take more steps moving forward. I think he's still pretty raw of a talent. Basically, that offense that Le'Veon Bell will not be playing in, it's not even close to comparison to that of the Steelers. There's so many weapons that the Steelers had that could take attention off of Le'Veon Bell and that he could have a great performance. That's not the case for the Jets anymore. They're going to be a lot more limited. People are going to focus in on Le'Veon Bell a lot more so. So for that reason, I've got him a little bit lower on this list. Next up, at number 9, we finally get to Todd Gurley. And with Gurley, there's so much to talk about. Now, I put out a separate video just in it of itself, just going all over the Todd Gurley saga and what you should do. But basically, look, quick recap, I've still got him as a top 10 guy. I would still take a chance on him if the timing is right. Most formats have adjusted to that, and now you're seeing him go in the middle of the second round, end of the second round. I think that's a very good value spot, and usually I am someone to go ahead and take a risk on a player like that, especially when the risk can turn into a top 5 running back, because when healthy, Todd Gurley is one of the elite running backs in fantasy, and even when he's hurt, if he comes back at 75, 80%, he's still a top 10 running back. The only piece of advice I would have here, if you're drafting Todd Gurley, you got to draft one of those backups, whether it's Brown, whether it's Henderson, whoever you think will be the guy, go ahead and get him. To me, Todd Gurley, he's on such a great offense. He might not be as big of a focal point in 2019, but he will still get you over 15 rushing attempts a game. To me, look, worst case scenario, you see an Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram type of situation. But I've said it before, if Todd Gurley is healthy enough to see that kind of role offensively, he's healthy enough to put up numbers similar to last year. The department where you're going to see some regression is the touchdowns. He had 17 rushing touchdowns last season, which is absolutely ludicrous. I don't think he's going to come close to duplicating those numbers. He had almost 1,300 rushing yards, receptions 59 for 580 receiving yards. I think the receptions will likely stay the same. What will become the most interesting part of all of this is how that knee issue plays out, whether the rush attempts will be there. If he comes with 260 rush attempts again in 2019, he's going to be a steal. That's why I think he can be so valuable. I realized the risk associated with Todd Gurley, but I stand by this. Sometimes in fantasy football, you have to go ahead and take a risk to really differentiate yourself from the competition. And right now, if Todd Gurley is still going at the end of the second round in drafts before the start of the season, he is a risk worth taking. Next, number 10, I have got Devonta Freeman, and I realize a bunch of you probably just lost your mind hearing that, but let me try and convince you otherwise. Let me try and get you on my side, and let me try and get you guys to see things my way. Now, I will say I've got him lower in standard format, so don't worry, I don't quite have him just as high, even though it's not that much lower. It's only about 3 or 4 spots lower. But the reason I'm so bullish on Devonta Freeman, despite everything, I realize these last 2 seasons, he's basically been a non-factor. He's dealt with a bunch of issues. People have him on their do not draft lists. But again, I think that he is a risk worth taking, because if he hits, this guy's a top 15 running back, no questions about it. I think he's going to give you running back 1 production, somewhere probably in the middle tier running back 1 production. The offense that he finds himself on is absolutely insane. I've got the Falcons as my best offense in 2019 for fantasy football. They've got the quarterback, they've got the wide receivers, they've got the running backs, they've got the improved offensive line. What's not to love? They've got the favorable schedule as far as playing conditions, 13 indoor games for the season. I love everything about the Falcons in 2019. Devonta Freeman, when healthy, he is one of the best dual threat running backs in the NFL. All reports coming out of camp are that he looks like his old self. If you're that worried about Devonta Freeman, which again, I don't think you should be as worried as it's been advertised. Right now, he's going at the start of the 3rd round, middle 3rd round, end of the 3rd round. Depends on the format and on the platform in large extent. But that is great value pick. It's not like he's a 1st or 2nd round selection. You're going to have, to some extent, a big part of the core of your roster set by then, and you can still ensure yourself at that position later on. And what better insurance pick than getting Ito Smith for the Falcons? Even with Coleman gone, the Falcons have a very viable handcuff. Get Devonta Freeman. If he does get injured, which, I'm not going to say it's not a possibility, obviously it is, then just go ahead, plug in Ito Smith. I think the Atlanta offense is going to be so good that Ito Smith will be an RB1 if Freeman gets hurt. But if this thing plays out like I anticipate it will, Freeman stays healthy for the majority of the season, and he gives you close to top 10 running back numbers. We've seen it before, people being absolutely against guys coming back from multiple injuries over a slew of seasons. Keenan Allen comes to mind. Only a couple years back, he had pretty much missed 2 seasons in a row. Guess what? If you took a chance on him back then, he's pretty much been a wide receiver 1 since then, especially in PPR formats. I liken this to that situation. I'm going ahead and buying on Devonta Freeman like nobody's business in 2019. Next at number 11, I've got Dalvin Cook. In standard formats, I've actually got him a spot higher, but basically, to me, Cook is in store for a breakout season. If I had to give you my list of favorite breakout running backs, Cook would be at the top of this list as far as guys that currently find themselves outside of the top 10 or right around that range, because in drafts he's going right around the end of the second round. Great value pick again in my mind. The reason I'm so high on Dalvin Cook, first and foremost, Latavius Murray no longer there, so I don't think he's going to have as many opportunities vultured. So right from the get-go, I think his stats improve. The big thing will be the injuries. Last year, in and out, his rookie season, the season ender. So for that reason, there is area for concern. But I will say, when he did return for a longer period of time towards the end of 2018, and when the Vikings made the change with their coordinator offensively, he looked like his old self. He showed flashes. The Vikings have gone on record that they want to rush the ball more so. He's a great pass catcher. You have to love that, especially in PPR formats. And the Vikings, offensively, they've made improvements. They needed to improve the line. They added Garrett Bradbury through the draft. He's a day 1 starter. I love his upside. And I do think the defense will improve. That'll give more opportunities to the offense. If you want to limit maybe some of the mistakes that Kirk Cousins makes and turn him into more of a game manager, what better way than to feed Dalvin Cook? So for all those reasons, Dalvin Cook is very high on my list, especially at his current ADP. Coming in number 12, I've got James Conner. Lower on this list than people would have expected for sure. I have got him a little bit higher in standard formats, but I will say this. The reason why I'm kind of on the fence about James Conner is one Jaylen Samuels. I think Samuels is a name that a lot of people need to keep an eye out for. Recent reports are coming out suggesting that Samuels will be a bigger part of this offense, of this rushing attack, than what was originally anticipated. And we all know how much the Pittsburgh Steelers value a pass-catching running back. They have the ultimate one in Le'Veon Bell. I don't think either of these guys are on the same level as what Bell was, but you can make the argument Samuels is just as good as Conner, if not better in that department. There were points in time last season where James Conner, even when he was healthy, not even talking about the games that he missed, wasn't getting the usage that you would expect an RB1 to receive. So that's another area of concern there. How committed will the Steelers be to James Conner when they know they have another viable guy in Jaylen Samuels? On top of this, James Conner had a lot of production in the touchdown department. So all of a sudden, if you decrease those rushing touchdowns, where in 2018 he had 12 of, you're going to see a little bit of a decrease in the rankings as well. I will, however, favorably say that this is still an offense that I think can support a top 10 to top 15 running back. I'm not as worried about some of these departures offensively. They've still got guys like Juju Smith. They've still got a good offensive line. They've still got Big Ben. So even though there are concerns about James Conner that I have, I still think that at the end of the season, he will at the lowest be a top 15 running back. Next, number 13, I've got Leonard Fournette. Now, I do got him a little bit higher in standard formats. I will say that. It only makes sense, but the separation isn't that much. So what does that suggest? Well, basically, I think Leonard Fournette will have a big time receiving type of year in 2019. I think he's a good pass catcher. People kind of sleep on that. To me, as far as the type of year I envision for him, this is right around the range where I see a division in the tiers of running back production, from tier 2 to tier 3 guys. Basically, these are still RB1s, just more lower end, so with mid-level production as well. Once we get into the tier 4 guys, that's when you're looking at RB2s for the fantasy season. But to me, I've got Leonard Fournette as the highest ranked tier 3 running back. I think he can absolutely sneak into the upper category of tier 2 guys, because look, the Jaguars, what they want to do as an offense is build themselves around Leonard Fournette, have him be the workhorse. We saw it his rookie season. Now, he's been on and off injured. He was disappointing last season, but TJ Yeldon now gone. Who's going to be the guy after him? They've got Alfred Blue. They drafted Armstead. A lot of people are saying the guy to own is Armstead in that backfield, the rookie. I'd probably go ahead and also agree with that. So if you're worried about the injury, go ahead. Another guy to potentially handcuff. And I will say the value for Leonard Fournette, very good right now. Middle of the 3rd round selection. I think he's got top 10-esque talent for the running backs. I think you're going to see him go over 1,200 yards if he stays healthy. And I think if that defense improves, it's going to put a lot of opportunities in the hands of the offense that has become now more stable with Blake Bortles out and Nick Foles in. The offensive line was improved, getting a guy like Juwan Taylor, a first-round talent that dropped to the 2nd round for the Jaguars, getting some guys back from injury. To me, all of that spells a big type of year for Leonard Fournette, and you could right now have him at a steal. Next, number 14, I've got Damien Williams. And Williams is another one of these running backs that the debate is on about where he should be ranked, because last season, while Kareem Hunt was not there for the Chiefs, well, no problem. Damien Williams stepped up in a big way and carried your team as a true RB1. So if we're going based off of that, he should be higher on these rankings. But there are concerns because, let's admit it, that was for only about a span of 4 or 5 games. Damien Williams for 16 games, will he be able to do that? The yards per carry weren't the most exciting. Now, he's a decent pass catcher, yes, but the Chiefs also added a guy in Carlos Hyde. What's that going to do? Is that potentially a threat to his job midway in the season towards the end of it? Now, favorably, the Chiefs have gone ahead and said, well, Damien Williams proved that he can be the guy last season, so we're going to give him that opportunity. He's going to be the starting guy, no doubt about it. When the season begins, and Andy Reid has been a head coach that sticks with one dude for the entirety of the season, a workhorse running back. So again, that's something in favor for Damien Williams again. He's playing with the reigning MVP, an offense that puts up a bunch of points. And even without Kareem Hunt, they were able to do that. Now, I will say Damien Williams is no Kareem Hunt. If Kareem Hunt was still with the Chiefs, Hunt would be a top 10 running back here. So I think that does speak to the type of talent that we're dealing with. I think more so than anything, Damien Williams is a top 15 option because of the scenario that he finds himself in. It's just such a friendly one for whoever it was. That's why so many people are kind of anxious about his ranking, because they're not sure if they're grading the offense or the running back. What can you trust more so? And I understand that. That's why I kind of have him towards the end of my top 15 running backs. Similar type of ranking in standard formats. The one thing that worries me here is I do think the Chiefs offensively will take a bit of a step back. I know the whole Tyreek Hill situation is still playing out, but he will be suspended for some portion of time. And I think however long that is, that Chiefs offense will take a step back during that range of weeks. And I think we're going to see a little bit of a lowering in scoring opportunities, in points that are being put up. So for that reason, I've got Damien Williams as a low-level RB1. At number 15, I've got Aaron Jones of the Green Bay Packers. And for Jones, he is a guy that I am extremely excited about in 2019. Obviously, he starts out the year in 2018 suspended. People are saying, is it going to be Jones? Is it going to be Jamal Williams? Well, it wasn't even close to being a contest. The Packers tried to kind of go ahead and let both of them prove it, even when Aaron Jones returned. But as the season went on, it became extremely apparent that Jones was the better running back, and when he got his opportunities, he absolutely stole the show. And the best thing about all of this, Aaron Jones can be now had as a early 4th round pick, somewhere around there. On top of all of this, I think that the Green Bay offense will bounce back in a big way, because as long as Aaron Rodgers is healthy, I think they're one of the best offenses in the NFL, and they can put up 30 on you in the blink of an eye. Honestly, after Davante Adams, to me, Aaron Jones is the best offensive weapon that Aaron Rodgers has. The coaching staff on top of this has said that they want to have their top running back, which will be Aaron Jones. I firmly believe that. Go ahead and be more involved in the passing attack. That is another reason why I've got Aaron Jones as a top 15 option in PPR formats. I think the Packers will go ahead, rebound in 2019. I think they did some nice things defensively that'll help them out. I think they will be in playoff contention. And I think Aaron Jones can be an RB1 that you get as an absolute steal in the 4th round. Next at number 16, I've got Kenyan Drake. And so far, Drake is one of these first running backs to be mentioned that has a large difference in standard to PPR rankings. In PPR, as you can see, I've got him a borderline top 15 guy, but in standard, in the 20s. But honestly, you can make the argument here that I should have him higher in PPR rankings, because not sure if people realize this, but in 2018, what people consider to be a down year, disappointing season for Drake, he finished as the 14th overall fantasy running back. And now guess what? Frank Gore is gone. He's no longer paired with Adam Gase, which a lot of people are ecstatic about. And the opportunity to improve the rush attempts, the rush yards, the rush touchdowns is absolutely there for Kenyan Drake. That's what's really exciting for me here, because even if he doesn't improve the pass catching numbers, you know, he's still, like we said, a top 15 type of talent. Now, the really exciting thing for me here is the value, because you can get great value for Kenyan Drake, and I think he can absolutely, maybe more so than any other running back we've mentioned up until this point in time, overproduce on where he is getting drafted. I think slowly people are kind of coming around to this, so, you know, heads up there. Keep an eye out for Kenyan Drake's value and how it is changing as we get closer to the season. But to me, Drake is, you know, the most kind of experienced running back the Dolphins have now. He's the most versatile running back that they have, one of the most versatile weapons on that offense, period. So for that reason, I can see Kenyan Drake having a rebound type of year in 2019 and kind of sustaining it throughout the season, even though the Dolphins might be disappointing as far as a fantasy viable offense. I think Kenyan Drake is the one guy on that offense that can pleasantly surprise a lot of people. Next, number 17, I've got Nick Chubb, and probably the most controversial ranking up until this point. I just want to make a quick statement that this is no indication of how I feel about Nick Chubb. If it was just him on this team, I'd have him ranked a lot higher. If the fantasy football season was only 9 weeks long, I'd have him ranked a lot higher, but it's not, and I don't. It's all about the situation. And the situation is that Kareem Hunt is going to return right in time for the fantasy football playoffs. And we do these rankings based on an entire season and how much these running backs are expected to help you not only during the first 9 weeks, but also into the fantasy football playoffs if you're lucky enough to get there. And guess what? Even though for the first 9 weeks, Nick Chubb will be an RB1, he will be an RB2 at best once Kareem Hunt comes back. Mark my words. The Browns did not bring in Kareem Hunt to be a sideline cheerleader. He will get every opportunity to challenge Nick Chubb and lessen his carries, his yards, everything once that suspension is up. And honestly, Kareem Hunt is the most well-rounded running back the Browns currently have. Hell, Nick Chubb is going to be losing out on pass-catching opportunities because he's not that great in that department to begin with, to Duke Johnson even before Kareem Hunt gets back. So I just don't see how you can go ahead and still value Nick Chubb as an RB1 for the entirety of the season. To me, even though his stats maybe once you go ahead and compile them through 16 games might suggest RB1 numbers, I think when it matters most, during crunch time, he's going to be an RB2 at best. And unless you've upgraded that position, or unless Kareem Hunt gets hurt, which is the best case scenario for Nick Chubb, I just can't go ahead and start him consistently and reliably on a week-to-week basis in the playoffs. Coming in at number 18, I have got Marlon Mack. Now, similar to standard formats, I've got him at the same spot, but I think this is right around where you see a transition to that next tier of running backs, guys that are probably more so RB2s. And look, that's all right. That's no big deal. Everyone needs a high-end RB2 as well. We can't all grab these high-end RB1s. And I've got Marlon Mack as a pretty high-end RB2 at that. So wouldn't surprise me if he ultimately makes the transition to a low-end RB1. But what really matters here to me most is I liken this to a situation like Damien Williams, because what are you drafting Marlon Mack for? Are you drafting him for the situation he finds himself in, or for his talent? Because I would argue it's probably more so the situation. Because in Indianapolis, Mack plays with a great offense, very high scoring, with one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, and maybe one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. The problem, however, as good as all those things are, is that the Colts are a pass-first team, that Marlon Mack is not a good pass catcher, that he's been nicked up before, we've seen. And on top of all of this, in situations where running backs would make their money in those red zone opportunities, I'd argue that with the amount of big body guys that the Colts have, the Eric Ebrons, the T.Y. Hildens, the newly added Devin Funchesses, that's going to take away from some of the rushing touchdowns that Marlon Mack might normally get in those situations. I mean, that's a big reason why Eric Ebron was so effective last year, because of that high touchdown percentage. And he is a big target in those red zone situations. For that reason, I'm not nearly as high maybe on Marlon Mack as some other people might be. However, I really do like the situation. And because of that, even though probably whatever running back you insert in there would have similar type of success, I'd still take a chance on Marlon Mack, and I think the outcome would be borderline top 15 type of talent. Next to number 19, I've got Kerryon Johnson. And man, on paper, I think Kerryon Johnson is one of these tier 4 running backs that I'm the most excited about. I think he's got a lot of talent. He proved it last year, breaking that God knows how long of a streak without a 100-yard rusher for the Detroit Lions since Reggie Bush. Good on you, Kerryon Johnson. But then obviously he suffers that injury, and he didn't really return. Probably could have returned if the Lions were in contention, but that wasn't the case. Ultimately, what I think will end up driving Kerryon Johnson's success for 2019 will be two things. First and foremost, look, the head coaching situation there with Matt Patricia, he's more of a defensive-minded head coach. What's he going to do moving forward? I think he somewhat lessens the value of those offensive players, but maybe he upgrades the running back situation because, with the good defense, you'd like to have a good rushing attack. I mean, up until last year, the Lions were a pass-first team, and it wasn't even close, but they really struggled in that department in 2018. So maybe, they're still kind of trying to find their identity under Matt Patricia. As much as that helps Kerryon Johnson, I think it also hurts him. But the biggest thing here, and I think we all know it, is will the head coaching staff commit to Kerryon Johnson being the guy? I liken this to the Green Bay situation with Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. We all know, we can see it. It's painfully clear that Aaron Jones was the guy, yet he didn't really get his chance until late in the season. Is that what's going to happen with Kerryon Johnson here? Hopefully, C.J. Anderson was just brought in as a mentorship role, as a backup, someone that Kerryon Johnson can learn from, and not someone that the Lions are going to rotate in and out consistently until Kerryon Johnson has to prove himself all over again. That's what all of this is going to come down to. Hopefully, I am wrong. If that is the case, then I do think Kerryon Johnson will outplay these rankings, and he will be a very pleasant surprise his sophomore season. And finally, at number 20, I've got Phillip Lindsay. And Lindsay was the undrafted rookie that won the hearts of Denver after winning the starting job over the highly drafted Royce Freeman. They both came in the same year as rookies, but it wasn't even close. Phillip Lindsay outplayed Royce Freeman. And the question is now, in order to determine the success that the Denver running backs will have in 2019, who will be the guy, and whoever is the starting running back, will the Denver head coaching staff again fully commit to that guy, or will they try to, if it is Philip Lindsay, reinsert and prove that Royce Freeman was a good pick and make him a part of that offense? Because I think, from what we saw last year, Philip Lindsay may be a little bit of a better fit on that offense than Royce Freeman is. But, things are going to change. There's a new head coach in town. That's why this is a big question mark. Vic Fangio, he's a defensive-minded head coach. We're going to see what that means for this offense. It's also an offense that's now going to be run by a new quarterback in Joe Flacco. So for this reason, I think Philip Lindsay, out of this entire tier 4 of running backs, maybe might have the most amount of question marks surrounding him. But just based on what we've seen, we know what the ceiling is for Philip Lindsay, and it's a good ceiling. It's solid production. It just, again, similar to Kerryon Johnson, will the coaching staff commit to Philip Lindsay? I've personally got him maybe ranked a little bit higher than some people might expect, because I value what he can do as a pass catcher more so than a guy like Sony Michel or a Derrick Henry or a Chris Carson. For that reason, he comes in at number 20, and if he does fully win out that starting job and Royce Freeman is nothing more than a backup, then he will outproduce these rankings. If it's more so a even split, then it wouldn't be a surprise if Philip Lindsay lands a couple spots underneath this projection of 20th overall. So with that, we finish up our look into the top running backs for this fantasy football season in 2019. As always, let me know what you guys thought. Did you agree? Disagree? Did you think some of these names should have been lower, higher? Do you think guys were omitted? Let me hear it in the comment section, along with any other questions you might have. If you guys are interested, this is only a sneak peek. The top 20 names, they're still the primary names to know, but if you're interested going deeper, for a deeper dive into all this, get the Fantasy Football Draft Guide. All the information you need to know in the description. You'll see the top 50 guys for this running back position, standard, PPR, more in depth. So check that out. And in the meantime, if you enjoyed, make sure to like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in future videos.